Good morning. So the other day when I was making lumpia, it made me think about some other sort of dishes from my childhood that I really enjoy and I want to recreate. So something that I do pretty often is tofu scramble, which is basically taking tofu and trying to make something like scrambled eggs out of it. What reminds me of my childhood is that the fact that my mom and my grandmother used to make it with tomatoes. They used to use something called alamang, which is kind of a fishy, well, it's a shrimp paste. I want to say it's like preserved brine, very, very sort of fishy kind of thing. It's not what I'm going to do today, not the whole fish thing, but I am going to do the sort of same sort of flavors with tomatoes, some soy sauce, minus the fish, but just sort of one of the breakfasts that I like to have with a tiny bit of that Filipino twist. So I'll start out by letting you know what I'm using. So I've just got some tofu, and this is just something that I find in the supermarket over here. I'm not exactly sure where it comes from. I don't think that it's going to be anything that any sort of tofu connoisseurs are going to be happy about, but it is extra firm tofu, and I can just find this in my grocery store. So 2 pounds for a packet, nothing too expensive, and you get quite a lot out of this. I usually have half of this per a portion, so half of a block cut up into cubes. That's about 140 grams, and this is kind of what it looks like cut up into cubes. So there's that. I've got about 120 grams of fresh tomatoes chopped. I'm going to be using garlic granules, so I'll use about a teaspoon of garlic granules and onion granules as well, or onion powder, and I'll use about a teaspoon of that. I also have a tablespoon of oil, an oil of your choosing, heating up. I'm using sunflower oil. And you probably want to use something that's like slightly flavorless, so something like vegetable oil, rapeseed oil, sunflower oil, something along those lines. And what other thing am I using? Oh yes, I'm using soy sauce, which I did bring out. Yep, soy sauce. I'll probably use about somewhere between a teaspoon and a tablespoon of soy sauce. And I'm going to use nutritional yeast. So I don't know if anybody knows what nutritional yeast is, but it is inactive yeast. So it's not something that you can bake bread with, but it does have B12 in it. And if you are vegan or vegetarian, you can use that for sort of a B12 supplement. Incidentally, B12 is not something that any animal, I've read this now, that any animal actually creates naturally. It's something that you get out of, like, drinking from springs and that kind of thing. And now that we, sort of drink purified or sort of cleaned and filtered water, we don't get it out of our drinking water. So the animals that people eat are how, the animals that people eat get their B12 via those sort of natural sources, and we get or people who eat animals get B12 via those animals eating it. They don't manufacture it naturally, if that makes sense. Okay, so I think that's everything from an ingredients perspective. I have my pan heating up on a high heat. I'm just going to turn that down to a medium heat now. And then the first thing I'm going to add to the pan is the chopped tomatoes, because I want these to kind of soften a little bit before I put my my tofu in. Just grab a spoon. So I just thought I'd make a little bit of breakfast. I just saw a little bit of makeup left over from yesterday. Excuse me, I literally did just wake up and this is breakfast. And I thought, why not make a video? So I don't have my double camera today. Like I said, I did just get up and thought I'll make a video. But I will give you a look to see what things are looking like. Hopefully you can see that. And I have a little secret with my tofu for making it egg-like, or making the pieces a little bit more like a scrambled egg. You can do this, I imagine, with the softer tofu. I just prefer it with the firm tofu. Okay, so these are softened up significantly already. I don't want them to get super soft before my tofu is cooked, so I'm going to add. Can you see that? Yeah. Hopefully you can see how soft those have gotten. Right, so now in goes the tofu. And voila, here's my secret for making this a little bit more scrambled egg-like. So I'm just going to go into the pan carefully and go over the tofu pieces, and I'll show you how they come out. At the moment, I'm keeping my tofu separate from my tomatoes while I'm doing this. So I don't want my tomatoes to get smushy, too smushy. So if you don't have a big enough pan, you might want to remove your tomatoes before you do this. Okay, so I think that's good. I'll show you what that looks like, and then we'll crack on with getting things seasoned up. It's very easy. That's why I thought I'd show you. Right, so there's the tofu. As you can see, it looks a lot more like scrambled eggs now. Still tastes like tofu. So you have to do what you have to do with tofu in order to get this to taste more like eggs. Right, so next I'm going in with my garlic granules. I'm kind of just measuring this by hand. Actually, I'm going to say that this is more like half a teaspoon of garlic granules. Unless you're more of a garlic fan, you can have a little bit more. Do it to your own taste buds. I am going to do a full teaspoon of onion granules. Going to add my soy sauce now. Like I said, that's probably about a teaspoon to a tablespoon of soy sauce, but that depends on your own taste, because it is a salty flavor. If you like it a little bit saltier or not. And now I'm going to go ahead and get everything mixed together. So I'm mixing up the tomatoes and the tofu now. There are a few larger chunks in there. That's okay. Imagine you could use whatever kind of potato masher you have to do this. And if not, just go in there with a fork. It's just a little bit, probably a little bit more difficult with a fork. Right, so that's cooking. And I am going to add a teaspoon of Nutritional yeast. Now, Nutritional yeast also has a kind of cheesy, kind of nutty flavor, so I'm not going to put too much in because I don't want that to overtake things. I just wanted to add that B12 element to the dish. In case you didn't know, tofu is a good source of protein. So everybody's always worried, where am I going to get my protein? So here's one of the answers. And if you don't know about beans, then Google it, dude. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to show you what it looks like. So, in true Filipino style, you probably have this with some white rice, some boiled white rice. I am going to have this with some brown toast. So I get some whole grains in, whole grains. I get some of my beans portions in with this, and I'll get some vegetables in with this as well. I mean, it's a pretty healthy breakfast. Probably the worst part about it is the soy sauce, maybe the oil. But yeah, it's not bad. That's my take on scrambled eggs and sort of the way that I used to have it growing up with tomatoes in it. Yeah, there you go.